Virgin Most Powerful Radio, sharing the gospel with clarity and charity.
And now, Virgin Most Powerful Radio is pleased to present Hands-On Apologetics with renowned Catholic author and apologist, Gary Michuta.
And welcome, everybody. Hands-On Apologetics. You have entered into Virgin Most Powerful's Apologetics Dojo. And it's great to be with you today to talk about how to explain your faith with clarity, charity, and confidence. And what better way to do that than to chat with the blue-collar apologist himself, John Martignoni. You're familiar with John Martignoni's work on EWTN radio and also television and just all sorts of great ministries, Bible Christian Society, all sorts of stuff. So John's going to be coming up on the other side of the break. It's always fun to talk to John because it really is blue-collar apologetics. Very simple, very direct, very straightforward, very easy to follow. And we're going to talk about a subject that I'd never heard him talk on. And so this is going to be a learning experience for me as well as for you. We're going to talk about atheism and non-belief, and how John enters into dialogue with non-believers. We're so familiar with his approach with Protestantism, with fundamentalism. It'd be great to kind of go into a whole different field of study in apologetics with the existence of God and tap his brains on how he would solve certain problems like the problem of evil, as only John Martignoni can. He'll be coming up on the other side of the first break. We also have our critical thinking exercises, such as the Finding the Fallacy segment. Today's Finding the Fallacy is called the Relative Privation Fallacy. And we meet an early church father for today. This one's one of my favorite early church fathers, I have to admit. I'm not sure why, but I like his punchy writing, and he covers such a lot of ground, very well, very learned, almost too learned, and that is none other than Saint Epiphanius of Salamis is our Meet the Early Church Father today. And by the way, I want to give my shout-outs to all those watching live stream on Facebook and YouTube. Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. I also want to welcome all of you listening radio around the country, around the world. We also appreciate you tuning in to tap into this thing we call Hands-On Apologetics. Great to have you as well. And by the way, if you have any questions for John, give us a call at 888-526-2151. That is 888-526-2151. And also, you can send your emails. Love to hear your emails. Got great questions coming in every day, and I do answer them, by the way. And the address to send to the dojo, the official dojo mailbox, is questions@handsonapologetics.com. Hands-On Apologetics is one of my two websites, also GaryMichuta.com, that you can go there if you want to pick up books or other resources that I've done. Hands-On Apologetics is my website. Actually, I need to update it. But it's just, things that I do recently, overviews of some of my books, things like that. But if you just email questions at handsonapologetics.com, that does go straight to my email address. And I do answer them. And like I said, some great questions. Keep it coming because who knows, maybe we will do a Dojo Mailbox show. That's always fun. Let's see. Anything else? No, I think we're all set. Why don't we jump into our Finding the Fallacy segment? Excuse me. Today's Finding the Fallacy is the fallacy of the relative privation. And, I don't know if I would call this a fallacy per se, but nevertheless, the fallacy of relative privation is also known as the appeal to worse problems fallacy or not as bad as fallacy. It dismisses an argument or a complaint due to the existence of quote-unquote more important problems in the world. Regardless of whether these problems bear any relevance to the initial argument. So it's kind of a brush off. In fact, I think it's more of a red herring. It just it tries to take the argument into a completely different direction, not whether or not somebody's proposition is true or false, but whether or not something else is more important than others. It's a completely different set of arguments. So, for example, someone could say, let's say abortion is wrong, and the relative privation response would be, oh, well, look at all the suicides in the world, look at global warming, look at all these other problems that are far, far worse. And in a way, it kind of tries to dismiss the argument by comparison. Of course, the problem with this is how do you determine whether something is more important or not? And even if things are more important, even if you grant that particular position, does it follow that we can't discuss lesser important issues? So, in a way, what you need to do is kind of concede what you can, kind of like with the ad hominem argument. Concede what you can, even hypothetically. Say hypothetically, even if that's true, these things are more important or it's more deadly or whatever. Nevertheless, why can't we discuss this particular problem, even if it is smaller? And I think that is a great way to diffuse this particular fallacy, which is the relative privation fallacy. Yeah, very interesting. Don't know. I guess you could find it in apologetics. I imagine it's probably more in public discourse, especially political discourse or moral issues. You would run into this more than defending the faith in terms of doctrine. Okay, why don't we jump to meet the early church fathers? Today's early church father today is St. Epiphanius of Salamis. St. Epiphanius was born around the year 315 in Palestine. His episcopacy, however, was not in Palestine, but rather I should say modern-day Palestine. It wasn't called Palestine back then. His episcopacy, however, was on the Isle of Cyprus, in what was once called Constantia, which is today called Salamis. So Epiphanius, by the way, is a strange figure. In fact, I'm following, as always, Jurgen's Faith of the Early Fathers on this segment. Epiphanius is a weird figure. He is about as testy as you can get, even as testy as St. Jerome. And yet Jerome, with all his, anger and persnickety, combative attitude, was actually very friendly to Epiphanius. In fact, he held Epiphanius in great reverence, strangely enough. It was Jerome who called him a pentaglot, which is because of his knowledge in Greek, Syriac, Hebrew, Coptic, and Latin. Jerome says also that his treatment of him in the illustrious Great Men book, Jerome says that Epiphanius' works were eagerly read not only by the learned because of their subject matter, but also by plain people on account of the language that he used. So that was Jerome's take on Epiphanius. Now, let's look at what some other people thought about Epiphanius. For example, even before I get into that, why don't I just continue? There is a bias beyond Jerome's adulation about the last remark. In fact, Epiphanius despised classical learning of Hellenism. He viewed with suspicion the elegant writings of those that had studied rhetoric. And so when Julian the Apostate, by the way, disenfranchised Christian teachers from allowing them to teach rhetoric in the classics, Epiphanius alone, among all the bishops, thought that was a great sign of progress, and he rejoiced over it. However, people like Photius said that Epiphanius' writings were careless and verbose, and it is commonly considered that they display the author's characteristic shallowness. Johannes Chrysostom, who wrote a famous Patrology, says that they are hastily superficial and disordered compilations of the fruits of his extended reading. Two things at least can be said in favor of Epiphanius' writings. They do preserve the most valuable history otherwise lost, and they permit the reconstruction of lost works of other authors, particularly Irenaeus of Lyon, and Hippolytus of Rome. St. Epiphanius combined his fiery zeal for Nicene orthodoxy with the incredibly rude lack of judgment, moderation, and tact. He was a vehement iconoclast before anybody was. I mean, before the iconoclastic heresy started. And he passionately hated Origen of Alexandria. In fact, Epiphanius joined with Theophilus of Alexandria in expelling the Origenist monks from Nitria. And when the Tall brothers took refuge with St. John Chrysostom, Epiphanius went personally to Constantinople to confront Chrysostom about being a protector of heretics. Now, there is an unreliable legend, Jurgen says, that records one of the parting words of Epiphanius to Chrysostom as being sort of like veiled curses, yet kind of foreshadow what would happen to both. When in their last confrontation, Epiphanius blessed Chrysostom with a remarkably well-honed Oriental curse, "I hope you will not die, a bishop," to which Chrysostom replied in kind, "To return home safely, do not expect." And within a few days, Epiphanius died at sea when his boat sank on his way back to Cyprus. And scarcely more than a year later, John Chrysostom was sent into exile, from which he never returned. So how strange that Epiphanius, that rude, violent man whose thoughts were too shallow to ever risk falling into heresy, was an anti-Origenist, and he's accounted a saint, while Jurgen says Didymus the Blind, who was sweet and humble and holy man, although he was for Origen, was declined the title of saint. So, yes, that is one of those works of church history. Coming up on the other side of the break, Master Apologist John Martignoni is coming aboard. We're going to talk about blue-collar apologists for unbelievers. Stay tuned.
This is Matthew Arnold for Virgin Most Powerful Radio. This March, VMPR, in association with the Catholic Resource Center, will be hosting a special conference for the Adoramus Society. Adoramus at the Triduum, a conference on the spirituality of the Triduum liturgies, featuring speakers Father Joseph Fessio, Dr. Anthony Lillis, and Christopher Carstens, addressing such topics as developing a liturgical spirituality, the spirituality of Holy Thursday, the spirituality of Good Friday, and the spirituality of the Paschal Vigil and Easter season. It all takes place March 14, 2020, at the historic Sacred Heart Chapel at 381 West Center Street, Covina, California, 91723. You can register online at vmpr.org or call now at 877-526-2151 to reserve your seat today for Adoramus at the Triduum. Sirach 11:24 says, "Do not say, I am self-sufficient. What harm can come to me now?" According to St. Catherine of Siena, presumption is like vermin burrowing at the root of the tree of our soul. If we do not uproot it with great care and humility, it will eventually destroy the soul. May God keep us from all presumption of mind and heart, and realize that we depend on Him for everything.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show, and they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Hands-On Apologetics with Gary Machuda. If you'd like to join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Here's Gary.
And welcome back, everybody. Hands on Apologetics. And our next guest is the blue-collar apologist himself, John Martignoni. Of course, you know John, he was born Catholic. He never really learned the faith growing up, and he left the church, went off to college, received a B.S. in finance, the MBA at the University of Alabama, and then he became the master apologist himself. He is the host of EWTN Open Line. He's also the director of Office of New Evangelization in the Diocese of Birmingham, and he's also the president of the Bible Christian Society. And you can get a hold of all of John's great stuff at that website. So check it out, folks. It's www.BibleChristianSociety, all one word, .com. And John Martignoni, welcome to Hands on Apologetics.
Gary, good to be back with you.
All right. Yeah, it's great to have you back in the dojo. You know, I always learn a ton when you're on the program. And so what have you been up to? It's been a little while.
Well, just got back a week ago. I organized for our diocese the high school bus trip to Washington, D.C. for the March for Life. We had over 400 students and their chaperones go up to D.C. for a few days, attend the march, and they did some tourist stuff as well, but the big thing was going to the march.
Yeah.
So I was
awesome.
up there in D.C. with them, although I didn't ride on the bus. I flew up there. These old bones don't take 12-hour bus rides very well. But, you know, so been doing that and just working on some things, maybe a video series on apologetics, trying to develop an apologetics course that could be used in high schools, youth groups, confirmation classes, whatever. Where, I mean, even for the older folks as well. So that's one of the things I'm working on right now.
Beautiful. Well, hey, you got to keep us updated on that, and we'll have you on the show, and you could kind of walk us through some of those as they come out.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, great. So today we're going to change things up because we've largely talked about Catholic-Protestant dialogues, which, you know, you are the master of, you know, just the average discussion between Catholics and Protestants and how to put a button on some very simple ideas that are incredibly effective. But we really haven't talked about non-believers, like how to discuss, you know, with that same simplicity and directness, something to a non-believer. So why not just throw out a question? So, John, how would you generally begin a conversation with an atheist when they're trying to convince you that there's no God?
Well, what I generally say is, okay, look, because the atheist is coming from the perspective that all they believe in is science, okay, and they think their views are perfectly 100% scientific in nature. They're backed by science, okay? Everything they believe is, if it's not scientific, can't be proven by science, and I don't believe it. Well, not so much so. But how do you make them realize that? So one of the first things I do, I'll say, okay, let me ask you this. I said, how did the universe begin? You know, I mean, we're talking science, so let's deal with the universe, the physical universe, matter, you know, and the laws of matter and the laws of physics and so forth. So how did the universe begin? And most of them, in fact, and I haven't talked to a whole lot of atheists, but I've been on atheist websites and in comm boxes and done a decent amount of dialogue with them. Every single one of them so far has said the Big Bang. The Big Bang is how the universe began. And I said, well, do you know who came up with the Big Bang theory? And they'll say, well, no. I said, well, would it surprise you if it was a Catholic priest in the 1920s? And they'll go, what? No. I'll say, yes, Father George, was it? Father LeMaitre. I can't think of I think his first name is George.
Yep.
Anyway.
George LeMaitre, yep.
And so they'll say, no. I'll say, but here's the thing. I say, the Big Bang isn't about the creation of the universe. It's about the expansion of the universe. The Big Bang is the explosion of the mass at this, what they call this singularity, that it was a mass, that was of matter that was so dense, all the matter in the universe basically packed into this thing that's the size of a needle head, And I said it was the explosion of that matter. I said, but how did that matter? How did it come into existence from a scientific perspective? And I go, I said, and ultimately they have no answer. It just did. Well, how? It just did. Or some of them, if they are better well-read than others, they'll say, Hawking says given gravity that the universe will come into being all by itself, spontaneous generation of the universe. I'll say, okay, we'll get to that in a minute. I said, but here's the thing. Why did the universe come into existence? Why is there something instead of nothing? I'll go, because it just did. Or they give some reason. Ultimately, though, all they can say is it just did. Because they can't answer the question, why? We as Christians can. We say, because God, loves us and He knew us before the creation of the universe, and He created the universe so that we could come into existence to know Him, love Him, and spend eternity with Him. But for the non-Christian or the non-believer, the atheist, the only answer they really have when you unpack it is it just did. And so I say, okay, number one, you can't answer the question why. Number two, let me ask you a couple questions. And let's think in a scientific mode here. I'll say, can a rock create another rock out of nothing? And they go, no. I'll say, can a tree create another tree out of nothing? No, it can't. Well, can a human being create another human being out of nothing? No. I say, yeah, human beings have to create new human beings from pre-existing matter, right? Yeah. In other words, matter cannot create matter, right? And they'll just, yeah. I'll say, so something immaterial had to create the material. Well, yeah, there's no God. No, let's not talk about God. I'm just saying something non-material had to create the material, because science tells us matter cannot create matter. It just doesn't happen. So, and I'll say, okay, and the universe is very ordered, isn't it? We got the laws of physics, the laws of thermodynamics, this physical constant, that physical constant. I said, we got all these laws. I said, it's a very ordered universe. Well, yeah, so in other words, whatever created the universe is something of order, and it must be, maybe even intelligent in order to create order. So we've got this universe that's created by something that's non-material, and it's ordered, and that order points to, but we won't claim, but it points to intelligence. And so, I don't know what you would call that. I'm going to call that God. It's and the other thing is this thing that created the universe, it's got to be really powerful, doesn't it? I mean, to create the entire universe out of nothing, whatever it is, whatever force it was, it had to be powerful. And so you've got non-material, or maybe some would say spiritual, non-material, powerful, ordered, very likely intelligent, and that's what created the universe. And I had this one atheist tell me, he said, that's the best explanation I've ever heard. Yeah. And then he went on to dog cuss me about something else and say everything I was saying was garbage, but it made him stop and think. It planted a seed. So that's where I start with science and with the creation of the universe. And try to go from there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, in my encounters with non-believers is generally that, the bottom line is science, and anything that science can determine exists, therefore must exist. However, science can't, then therefore it cannot, it can't exist. And so kind of bringing that to the forefront that, look, even if you take, your belief in that only the material world exists, you ultimately end up with an immaterial, super powerful, apparently intelligent force that brought things into existence. Right.
Yeah. And like I said, starting with science, it's like when you talk to a Protestant. Well, when I, as a Catholic, am talking to a Protestant about matters of faith, I don't use all 73 books of the Bible because the Protestant Bible only has 66 books. So I take what they find authoritative, what they agree is authoritative, and I just use that. And so I won't even bother with 2nd Maccabees and prayer for the dead and all that because that's not in their Bible. With the atheist, what do they find authoritative? Science. So you have to use science in order to get their attention and maybe plant some seeds.
Yeah, that's a great point. There is kind of a parallel there. You have to appeal to the same authority, even if they reject the Bible, then you got to find what else you have in common, right?
Right. I play on their playing field.
Yeah. And also, I love the way you ask questions, too. It's you're not just giving explanations, but you're driving the conversation with questions. And that's really effective, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what I do in everything, whether I'm talking to Protestant, evangelical, Baptist, whoever, atheist. If you're always on the defensive, I always tell Catholics, I say, look, when somebody asks you a question, they're putting you on the defensive because now you have to defend what you believe and why you believe it. And I'm saying it's okay to just give what I call a defensive answer. Okay, here's what we believe. Boom. All right. Well, but it's even better to mix the offensive answer in with the defensive answer. An offensive answer is asking a question, and so atheists ask, well, this, and you say, okay, yeah, this is why I believe this, but why do you believe this? Given that, again, the Big Bang was not the creation of the universe, and the Big Bang is perfectly acceptable to Catholics. We don't have to believe it, but we church aloud. So it has nothing to do with our faith as to whether we believe the Big Bang or not. And that kind of catches them off guard.
Absolutely. We're chatting with Master Apologist John Martignoni. More to come on the other side of the break, folks. You're listening to Hands On Apologetics. Stay tuned.
This is Matthew Arnold inviting you to listen to Happy Hour on Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Every week I offer reflections on the Sunday readings of the extraordinary form of the Mass and take a traditional look at the many challenges facing Catholics today. Drawing on Scripture and medieval sources like the Imitation of Christ, I'll help you on your personal quest for spiritual perfection so that you can find true happiness in holiness. Check out Happy Hour live every Friday from noon to 1 p.m. Pacific Time on our Virgin Most Powerful Radio YouTube channel or our VMPR smartphone app. It's easy to download the app to your phone from the App Store or when you visit our website, vmpr.org. That's Happy Hour live every Friday at noon or anytime on demand. I'm Matthew Arnold for Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
This is Terry Barber. I want to thank you for supporting Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And here's an easy way to support us by going to smile.amazon.com and type in Catholic Resource Center or Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And when you log in your Amazon account and you purchase products, a portion of it will go right back in supporting Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And it doesn't cost you a dime. I want to thank you ahead of time because that supports us year-round. May God bless you and your family. Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
This is Jesse Romero. You're listening to Hands-On Apologetics with Gary Machuda on Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
And welcome back, everybody. We are chatting with master apologist John Martignoni, the blue-collar apologist himself. And we're talking about apologetics with non-believers. And, John, great job showing us your typical intro to a discussion with non-believers. And before the break, we were talking about the importance of going on the offensive, not being left on the jury stand, presumed guilty until proven innocent, to actually, go on the offensive. And I think one area in theistic apologetics that I think is difficult to do that, to switch from the defensive to the offensive, is the problem of evil. How can you believe in God, a good God, when there's so much suffering in the world, needless suffering? Either he's not strong enough to correct it or he's not good enough to care to correct it.
Yeah, what I do is I ask him, I say, okay, let me ask you a question. There is no God, so man is essentially just a member of the animal kingdom. We're at the top of the rung for now, but we're just animal, right? And Darwinism, the survival of the species, it's all that's in effect, right? And yes, absolutely. Okay, that's what's behind much of their belief. So I say, okay, let me ask you this. I say, is a lion killing a gazelle evil? I say, and they'll look at me funny. What? No, of course. What do you mean? No, of course not. How can it be evil? The lion's got to eat. I say, okay. Well, is like if a wolf kills the puppies, the head of the wolf clan, the male, the alpha, kills the puppies of another male in the wolf clan because he doesn't want anybody to eventually, challenge him for the alpha role. Is that evil? No, that's what they do. It's instinct. It's not evil. So, okay, so if man is just another animal, then anything we do is not evil. If I kill somebody, that's not evil. I'm just, one animal killing another animal. If I steal somebody's food, that's not evil because, hey, I've got to eat, survival of the fittest and all. So it's not, oh, no, man's different. Well, no, you said he was just an animal. And, so essentially the same moral code that governs the animal kingdom governs the entire animal kingdom, which includes man. And I said, well, no, because man has this intelligence and they can decide right and wrong. I said, oh, wait a minute, right and wrong. I said, who decides right and wrong? What's right, what's wrong? Oh, well, each individual. Oh, okay, so if I decide it's okay to, beat you on the head with a baseball bat right now, that's okay because I say it's no. It's society. The society you're in decides. Okay, so Nazi Germany in, let's say, 1938 decides it's okay to kill all the handicapped, to kill all the terminally ill, to kill the elderly. In essence, to kill the weak in society, and then go on and kill all the Jews, which they believe are weak. That's okay because the society decided. Well, and I've actually had some people who, realizing the logic, have had to admit, well, yeah, I guess it was. It's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
You just said mass murder was okay, in order to not be inconsistent in what you believe. And I'll look at it, I say, really, are you going to go there? And so what I'm doing with that is I'm planting the idea that, well, without God, there is no such thing as evil, because we're all just governed by the laws of Darwinism, the laws of nature. Might makes right. The strong shall prevail, survival of the species, etc. And so there is no such thing as an objective moral code, an objective moral environment that, this is definitely right, this is definitely wrong, because we're all just animals. And so each one of us, for human beings then, in that environment, each human being decides for himself what's right, what's wrong. That's why, for me, I think cheating on my wife would be wrong. But I can't tell somebody else it's wrong for them to cheat on their wife, because that's for them to decide what's right and wrong for them. That results in chaos, not just in individual lives and family lives, but in the lives of society. And it just can't happen that way. And so I tell them, this problem of evil, you are borrowing a term, a concept from Christianity in order to make your argument. Why? How is it you can do that? Now, what do you mean? Well, again, there is no evil if there is no God. As Dostoevsky says in The Brothers Karamazov, if there is no God, then everything goes, because there is no objective evil. There's only subjective evil. Again, everybody deciding for themselves, right and wrong. And so there is no problem of evil in terms of God, because without God there is no evil. And they'll say, well, but babies still die. I say, yes, because creation with the fall, Adam and Eve, is out of balance. It's out of whack. And evil, there's physical evil because of that, babies dying because of disease or whatever. And then there's moral evil, one person killing another, because we have a fallen nature, because we decide to choose evil, to choose, to move away from God and to do something according to our will instead of God's will. And that's where evil comes in. It's not something God created. It's something God allows, because he wants us to make our choices, free choices. He wants us to freely choose to love him, because if we're not free to choose, we can't truly love. And he wants us to love him like he loves us. And so he gives us that choice. And a lot of us make bad choices. In fact, all of us pretty much make bad choices at one time or another. And those choices are deemed evil, in essence, by whether it's stealing or lying or killing or whatever it might be. But again, without God, there is no such thing as evil. So your argument, the problem of evil, it's a self-defeating argument, because you're borrowing a term that makes no sense unless God exists.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, that's something I've always thought as well. Most people will jump to the defensive, but if you don't believe in God, then there's no such thing as evil, which in other words, there's really no problem of evil because there's no evil. But that's a problem in and of itself, because if you hold to a belief system that says there's no such thing as evil, that doesn't square with common experience.
Right. And what they'll say immediately, and I've had this happen almost every single time I've had this discussion with an atheist, is that they'll say, oh, so as an atheist, I can't be moral? And I said, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying as an atheist, you are moral or not according to your own moral code. But your own moral code is not an objective moral code. It's a subjective one. It's based entirely on your opinion. And so you cannot hold someone else to your moral code because that's for you, and they may have a completely different moral code than you do. For example, here in America, we probably are not going to kill dogs and eat them. And people would say, oh, that's wrong. That's wrong to kill a dog and eat. Well, in Korea, a lot of people kill dogs and eat them. And that's no big deal to many of them. So they wouldn't say, well, that's wrong or anything like that. So different moral codes for different people. But so there is no objective moral code if there is no God who is the lawgiver who creates, essentially what is right and what is wrong, who creates the environment for, or lays down the rules for what is right and what is wrong. And so, without God, again, as it says in the Brothers Karamazov, everything goes. You can do whatever you want to do because, again, a lion killing a gazelle is not evil. One monkey stealing the food of another monkey is not evil. It's just, that's nature. And so when we follow our nature and we're mean to somebody, we kill somebody, we beat up somebody, we steal from somebody, that's just my nature. So there's nothing evil about that. And it's a recipe for chaos. So individually, atheists can indeed be moral, but what moral code are they generally borrowing from? Thou shalt not kill. Where have I heard that? Thou shalt not steal. Where have I heard that one? They're borrowing from the Judeo-Christian moral code for their own morality. And so the atheists are borrowing all these things from monotheism and then coming back and saying, well, there's no such thing as a God. Well, yeah. But you're borrowing all of our stuff, Right. And then you're coming and telling us, well, all this stuff we borrowed, we're going to put it into effect, but we don't believe the God that you think gave you all this stuff. It's like, that makes no sense whatsoever.
Right. Yeah, I think that was a great distinction you made that about an objective anchor for the moral code, because I think a lot of non-believers, when they ask, well, can't atheists be moral, they really don't appreciate that they're living off of the momentum of Christianity that has changed Western culture for over a millennium. And so it seems as if it's part of the air we breathe, but really when push comes to shove, there's really no objective thing to stand on if God doesn't exist. I hear the music. We'll continue on the other side of the break. We are chatting with Master Apologist John Martignoni about apologetics with non-believers. More to come on the other side of the break, folks. Stay tuned.
Welcome, Daniel. You're on the line. What's on your mind, brother?
Hi, I just wanted to share a testimony about Virgin Most Powerful Radio. I had a buddy at work who, he's a lukewarm Catholic guy, and I wanted him to start listening to the Terry and Jesse show, so I kept telling him to download the app, and he kept putting me off. So one day, I grabbed his phone, and I downloaded the app for him. I went on vacation, and I kept telling him to listen to it. He would kind of put me off. I came back from vacation. He comes to my cubicle, and he says to me, hey, man, I've been listening to Terry and Jesse's show, and it's great. And it's made a big impact in his life. The guy, he's going to weekly adoration a couple times a week. He goes to the Mass in the morning. Mm-hmm. He's an on-fire Catholic, and he promotes the Terry and Jesse show on the Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
Daniel, what a testimony, and I want to encourage our listeners to get those cards by going to virginmostpowerfulradio.org and do what Daniel's doing. Go out and spread the faith by inviting people to listen to Virgin Most Powerful. Daniel, thanks for your testimony, brother. God love you.
You're welcome.
In 1 Corinthians 13:13, St. Paul says, "So there abide faith, hope, and love, these three." According to St. Ignatius of Antioch, faith is the beginning and love is the end. and God is the two of them brought into unity. Then comes everything else that makes up a Christian. May God grant that we may attain all the virtues that make for authentic followers of His Son.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show, and they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE, US 1.
Now, back to Hands-On Apologetics with Gary Machuda. If you'd like to join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Here's Gary.
And welcome back, everybody, Hands-On Apologetics. And if you have been listening to the program, maybe you just tuned in, we're rocking the dojo here with Master Apologist John Martignoni, talking about unbelievers. And John, you know, the music kind of came up on us, and I thought I heard you wanting to add something. Was there something you wanted to add to that comment?
No, I was just agreeing with what you were saying.
Okay. Well, that's good.
I always agree with what you say, Gary.
Well, that's an unfamiliar noise here at the Machuda residence, so I appreciate that. Yeah, okay. Well, problem of evil. Yeah, very good. That's a great way to go on the offensive, especially on this where I think most believers kind of feel like they're up against the ropes. What about, we already talked about the universe beginning. Where else would you go with a non-believer?
Well, one thing I want to get back to, I mentioned it about at the beginning with the beginning of the universe. Stephen Hawking, you know, he was a brilliant man, absolutely, no denying that whatsoever, and a man who suffered greatly his entire, not his entire, but much of his, if not most of his adult life. But one thing he said about the universe just spontaneously springing into existence, he said, given gravity, the universe will just become, you know, it will just jump into creation. It will just be there. Well, here, you know, for somebody as smart as he was, that was actually a pretty dumb thing to say. Because what is gravity? Gravity is the attraction of one mass for another mass. That's one of the definitions. You know, the attraction between masses, physical masses. Well, if there is no physical mass, there is no gravity. So how, given gravity, does the universe come into being from nothing? Okay, there's no mass, so there's no gravity. The other thing, Einstein's theory of relativity, is that gravity isn't necessarily this force, attraction between masses, as much as it is as a bending or curving of space. Okay, and that bending and curving is you know, dependent on, is a function of the mass of a particular body in space. So the larger the body, the greater the bending and curving of space. Well, again, if there is no space, if there is no mass in space, you don't have gravity. So to say, given gravity, the universe will just pop into existence, that's circular reasoning. You know, because there's no gravity until the universe comes into existence. And so, again, you'll have some atheists who'll say, well, Hawking said this. Well, Hawking kind of missed the boat on that particular thing. So, you know, smart man, but smart men sometimes say dumb things, you know. So, but something else I would ask, and this, you know, in our day and age, our culture is teaching people that truth is based not on the intellect, on what you can perceive with the intellect, but on what you feel, on the will. You know, I believe this is true, so it is. I don't believe that's true, So it's not. If I believe 1 + 1 = 5, it does equal 5 for me. If I believe, that I was born with XY chromosomes, but I'm actually a woman, well, then I am a woman, even though I was born male. I'm actually a woman because I believe it. So the will, the feelings, are what we're using to decide truth. So I try to throw in anything I'm doing, not just an appeal to the intellect, but an appeal to the will, to the heart as well. And so what I ask people, I say, listen, if, according to you, Mr. or Ms. Atheist, the universe just came into being by absolute, blind, random chance, right? Yes. These non-personal forces just, something happened, and it was just an accident, right? Yes. Just, like I said, blind, randomless, purposeless chance. So, does your life have any meaning? Well, yes, it does. I'm working. I've got a wife and kids, and got a good job where I contribute. I'm working for a nonprofit, and I'm helping the poor through the. So yes, my life has meaning. I'll say no, it doesn't. I'll say, well, what do you mean? I say, your life has absolutely zero meaning. How can your life have, if the entire universe is based on random, blind chance, then that means your life is based on random, blind, meaningless, pitiless chance. So your life, you may think your life has meaning, but you're just fooling yourself. Your life has no more meaning than the life of that rock over there on the side of the street. That's how much meaning your life has. Zero. Zip. You can fool yourself and think you have meaning, but in a random universe that randomly brought about the earth and the sun, the solar system, which randomly brought about animals and life, which randomly brought about your life is completely based on random, blind chance. And your life means zip. And you get them to stop, and they might get upset, which, again, I always tell people, don't worry about if somebody gets upset with you, because the only reason they're getting upset is because you've planted a seed with them. And it makes them stop and think. Because I say you're just the product of random biochemical forces, that are completely meaningless. And so you cannot have meaning in your life. Your wife's life has no meaning. Your children's lives have no meaning. Nobody's life has any meaning if there is no God. And I tell them, I say, I find it so ironic that for the atheist, anybody's life at its core has to be meaningless because it's random. It again, blind chance. And so their lives have no meaning. They have no purpose. And love, this thing we call love, well, it's just a biochemical reaction, again, based on meaningless, blind, random chance forces. I said, but me, as a Christian, I believe your life has infinite value. I believe you are loved by this infinite God, and that He has a purpose for your life that is amazing and beautiful. And so it's so ironic that I believe your life is worth more than you believe your life is worth. And I just say, isn't that kind of strange to you? Well, never thought of it that way, or they'll dog cuss me, or something, change the subject and start, well, this is, God's like a leprechaun or something. Like, dude, think about it. Without God, there is no meaning to the universe, to life, to any individual life. we can fool ourselves into thinking there is, but there's not. Is that how you want to go through life? Is that the legacy you want to leave your children? Hey, kids, your lives are just, governed by blind, random chance, and your lives have no more meaning than the life of a mosquito. Is that how you? Right. And it makes them think.
Yeah. John, as you were saying this, I was thinking, boy, this is a parallel to the problem of determining evil, isn't it? If God doesn't exist, there's no good, there's no evil. Well, the flip side is there's no worth, there's no value, because
no purpose.
Everything's the same. It's just random collections of molecules that some evolved to higher states, but basically we're all, part of the same swamp.
There's this line from one of the Terminator movies. I think it's the second one, with the young John Connor, and Arnold Schwarzenegger comes back this time as a good Terminator to protect the young John Connor. And Schwarzenegger, in his role of protecting John Connor, is about to kill somebody. And John Connor says, you can't just go around killing people. And the Terminator, Arnold, says, why? And John Connor says, what do you mean, why? Because you can't. And Schwarzenegger says, why? And John Connor says, because you just can't, okay?
Right.
Well,
I remember that.
That's the position of the atheist. They may take a moral position and say killing is wrong, but they have no reason behind it. There's no objective truth behind it. There's just, you just can't, okay? Yeah. You just can't. Why? Well, it's not because God made that person in his image and likeness, and God is the author of life, and he is the one who can take life, not us. And so that's why you can't kill that person. Oh, okay. But without God, it's just, you just can't.
Right. Yeah, who would think that you would learn some good apologetic stuff from a Arnold Schwarzenegger movie?
Yeah, hey man, there's good. You can just about any movie you can find. Oh yeah, I can use that one. So
yeah, absolutely.
Some of the movies you have to look a lot harder than other movies, though.
That's true. Well, John, boy, I can't believe our hour has flown. Let's talk a little bit about your website, what you got on the website. What's available there for free?
All right, I've got 27 different talks. Most of them are by me. One's by Scott Hahn. One's by Father Ray Ryland, who God rest his soul. One's by this Catholic priest who was a Baptist pastor and became, converted and became a Catholic priest. All the rest are by me. They're all various apologetics topics: Mary in the Bible, the sacraments in the Bible, apostolic authority in the Pope, the rapture in the Bible. So all free on CD or free on MP3 download. I've got 360-plus apologetics newsletters archived there, all free. I've got my blue-collar apologetics DVDs, which they're the only things that cost something, but I have to pay for those in order to offer them. BibleChristianSociety.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program. I appreciate it.
It was my pleasure, Gary.
All right. John Martignoni, BibleChristianSociety.com is the website. Well, wow, it's already time for me to shut down the Midwest Command Center here. Turn off the dojo lights. Coming up next, High Impact Catholic Talk coming at you with the Terry and Jesse Show. And I hope everybody has a great weekend. And God willing, we'll be talking again next Monday. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
In the 1990s, I lived and worked in Hollywood. But when my wife Betty's mom took ill, we relocated to Orange County. And it was during this time in our lives that I converted to Catholicism. Once my eyes were opened to the truth, I couldn't learn enough about the faith. But I had less free time than ever, especially with a long commute. That's when I discovered the real value of Catholic audio. Listening to cassette tapes transformed my daily commute into a miniature retreat. And that's the beauty of Virgin Most Powerful Radio today. Since the podcasts are archived, you can listen anytime on our smartphone app. I know how listening to Catholic audio can bring you closer to Christ and His Church. So I encourage you to visit the App Store or go to vmpr.org and download the app today. It just might change your life. I'm Matthew Arnold for Virgin Most Powerful Radio.